He betrayed his poor wife, then learned she was worth $187 million. The first thing Daniel Hart noticed when he came home that Friday night was that his wife had taken her wedding ring off. It sat on the kitchen counter beside a chipped blue mug, a grocery receipt, and a folded piece of paper with his name written across the front. For a few seconds, Daniel simply stared at it. The apartment was quiet, too quiet, no music from the old radio near the window, no smell of garlic or onions from the stove, no soft footsteps from the bedroom. Even the second-hand wall clock seemed louder than usual. Is Emma? No answer. Daniel set down the paper bag he was carrying. Inside were 2 sandwiches from the little cafe near the bus station, the kind Emma liked when she was too tired to cook. He had bought them because he knew she had worked late all week. Emma, I'm home. Still nothing. He reached for the folded paper. Daniel. I know. That was all the first page said. His hands suddenly felt cold. He turned it over. I know about Vanessa. I know about the hotel in Brighton. I know about the apartment you rented for her. I know about the money you told me you didn't have. And I know that every time you looked me in the eye and said you were working overtime, you were choosing another woman over your wife. I'm not going to scream. I'm not going to throw your clothes into the street. I'm not going to call your mother and tell her what kind of son she raised. I'm just leaving. The divorce papers will arrive next week. Daniel read the letter 3 times. By the third, he was no longer breathing normally. He rushed into the bedroom. Half the closet was empty. Emma's 2 dresses were gone. Her old suitcase was gone. The small box where she kept photographs of her parents was gone. The cheap silver necklace he had given her on their first anniversary was gone. But the expensive red handbag Daniel had bought her the previous Christmas was still there. So was the new phone. So was the gold bracelet. Emma had taken almost nothing that Daniel had purchased after they were married. She had taken the things that belonged to her before him. That detail frightened him more than the letter. He pulled out his phone and called. Straight to voicemail. Again. Voicemail. Again. Nothing. Then a message appeared. It was from Vanessa. Are you coming tonight? I booked our table. Don't be late again. Daniel stared at the message while his wife's ring lay 6 meters away on the kitchen counter. For years, Daniel had believed he was the smartest person in every room. At 35, he worked as a sales manager for a construction supply company. He wore inexpensive suits, drove a 7-year-old sedan, complained about rent, and told everyone that marriage had made money tight. His coworkers thought he was ambitious. His friends thought he was practical. His mother thought Emma should be grateful to have him. And Emma, as far as Daniel knew, believed he was a hardworking husband doing his best to build a modest life. The truth was uglier. Daniel had been hiding money for nearly 2 years. Not millions, not even close, but enough to rent a small apartment across town under a company account. Enough to take Vanessa to restaurants he told Emma they could never afford. Enough to buy Vanessa a diamond necklace while telling his wife that replacing their broken washing machine would have to wait until the end of the month. Vanessa worked in marketing for one of Daniel's clients. She was glamorous, confident, and impressed by status. The first time they had dinner together, she laughed at his stories, touched his wrist when she spoke, and told him he was wasted living such an ordinary life. Daniel had liked how those words felt. Ordinary. That was what he had begun to think of Emma. Ordinary wife, ordinary apartment, ordinary dinners, ordinary weekends. He forgot that Emma had been beside him before he had a management title. He forgot the winter when they had survived on soup and rice because he was unemployed. He forgot that she had worked double shifts at a bookstore to pay his certification fees. He forgot the night he had promised her that if he ever had more money, he would never become the kind of man who confused price with value. Now the promise sounded almost cruel. Daniel did not go to Vanessa that night. He sat at the kitchen table until 2 in the morning with Emma's ring in his palm. Then he opened the banking app on his phone. His hidden account held $43,000. He had once thought that number made him powerful. Now it looked very small. What Daniel did not know was that Emma had been hiding something too. Only her secret was much bigger. 3 years earlier, before Daniel met Vanessa, before the lies and hotel rooms and secret apartment, Emma had received a phone call from a lawyer named Harold Bennett. She had been at work, shelving books in the history section, when her phone vibrated in her apron pocket. Mrs. Hart. And yes, my name is Harold Bennett. I represent the estate of Eleanor Whitmore. Emma nearly dropped the book in her hand. Eleanor Whitmore was her grandmother. To most of the world, Eleanor Whitmore had been a private investor, hotel owner, and widow whose family company had quietly accumulated real estate across 3 states over 4 decades. To Emma, she had simply been Grandma Ellie, the stubborn old woman who mailed handwritten birthday cards, refused to own a smartphone, and once taught Emma how to change a tire in the rain. Emma's parents had died when she was in college. After that, Eleanor became the closest family she had left. But there had always been distance between them. Eleanor disliked Daniel from the beginning. Not because he was poor. Eleanor herself had grown up poor. She disliked him because she believed he was hungry for recognition in a way that could make a man dangerous. He watches people with better shoes, she once told Emma, not because he likes the shoes, because he wants to know whether they are standing above him. Emma had defended Daniel. He's insecure, that doesn't make him bad. No, Eleanor replied, but insecurity mixed with ambition can make a person forget who loved them before they were impressive. Emma had been angry at the warning. For months, she stopped visiting. Then Eleanor became sick. By the time Emma returned, her grandmother was too weak to argue. During their last afternoon together, Eleanor took Emma's hand and said, "I hope I was wrong about him." Emma squeezed her fingers. "You were." Eleanor smiled. "I hope so." She died 11 days later. The lawyer told Emma that her grandmother had left her a controlling interest in Whitmore Holdings, several properties, investment accounts, and a trust with a total estimated value far beyond anything Emma had imagined. Emma sat down on the floor between the history and travel shelves. "How much?" Mr. Bennett gave her the estimate. Emma thought she had misunderstood. "Can you repeat that?" He did. $187 million. Emma stopped hearing the sounds around her. A customer walked past. A cart squeaked. Someone laughed near the register. The world continued, as though her life had not just split into a before and after. That evening, Emma came home to Daniel making instant noodles. He was irritated because their electricity bill was higher than expected. "We have to stop wasting money," he said, "and your bookstore barely pays anything. Maybe you should look for a real job." Emma stood in the doorway and studied him. She could have told him. She almost did. Instead, she said, "Maybe." Daniel complained through dinner. The rent, the car, his boss, his coworker's new watch, his friend Marcus buying a house. He talked about money as though money were a person who had personally insulted him. Emma listened. Then she remembered her grandmother's warning. So she made a decision she would later question 1,000 times. She said nothing. Not because she wanted to trick Daniel. Not because she planned to test him. At least that was what she told herself. She wanted time. She wanted to understand what had happened before wealth changed everything around them. She wanted to know which friendships were real, what work she still wanted to do, and whether Daniel loved the life they had built together or merely tolerated it until something better came along. Through a legal trust and professional managers, Emma kept her inheritance private. She continued working at the bookstore. She continued using coupons. She continued riding the bus when Daniel needed the car. The only visible change was that she stopped worrying. When the refrigerator broke, she calmly paid for it from an account Daniel assumed contained her savings. When Daniel's mother needed dental surgery, Emma quietly covered the part insurance would not pay. When Daniel wanted to take a management course, Emma encouraged him. "Where will we get the money?" he asked. "We'll manage." He never asked how. At first, the secret seemed harmless. Then Daniel changed. His promotion came 18 months later. He began coming home later. He bought better shirts but told Emma they had been discounted. He started correcting her pronunciation in restaurants. He stopped introducing her as my wife Emma and started saying, "Emma works at a bookstore," as though apologizing for her. At a company Christmas party, a colleague asked Emma what she did. Before she could answer, Daniel laughed. "She sells novels to teenagers, nothing exciting." Emma smiled politely. But she remembered. A month later, Vanessa appeared. Emma first noticed her name because Daniel smiled at his phone. It was a small thing. A private smile. The kind he used to give Emma. Then came the changed password, the late meetings, the new cologne, and the strange emotional distance of a man who still slept beside his wife, but had already moved his imagination somewhere else. Emma did not immediately investigate. She wanted to believe him. That was the humiliating part. Even after she knew enough to be afraid, she still wanted him to be innocent. One rainy Tuesday, Daniel called and said he had to spend the night in another city because of an emergency client meeting. Emma said, "Drive carefully." Then she watched through the apartment window as he got into Vanessa's car. Emma stood there for 15 minutes after they disappeared. She did not cry. She walked to the kitchen, filled a glass with water, and sat down. Her grandmother's voice returned to her. "I hope I was wrong about him." Emma whispered into the empty room, "You weren't." Still, she did not leave. Not that night. Not that week. She needed certainty. So, for the first and only time in their marriage, Emma hired a private investigator. The report arrived 12 days later. Photographs, receipts, hotel reservations, a lease for a furnished apartment, transfers from Daniel's salary into an account Emma did not know existed, and messages recovered from public posts and legally documented communications that made the betrayal impossible to explain away. The worst sentence was not romantic. It was something Daniel had written to Vanessa when she asked why he had not divorced Emma already. "I'm waiting until I'm financially secure. Emma has nothing. I don't want to feel guilty leaving her broke." Emma read it twice. Then she laughed. It was not a happy laugh. Her husband believed he was staying partly out of charity. The same husband whose certification she had paid for. The same husband whose mother's surgery she had covered. The same husband living in a home whose rent she had quietly prepaid through a trust-owned management company after their landlord decided to sell. He believed Emma had nothing. And Emma realized that emotionally she did. Not because she lacked money. Because she had spent years investing in a marriage Daniel had already emptied out. That was the night she called Harold Bennett. "I'm ready," she said. "For what?" "To stop hiding." There was a pause. "Are you sure?" Emma looked across the room at her wedding photograph. "No," she said, "but I'm ready anyway." The divorce papers arrived at Daniel's office on Monday morning. A receptionist carried the envelope to his desk, while two members of his sales team were discussing quarterly numbers beside him. "Personal delivery," she said. Daniel knew before he opened it. His chest tightened when he saw Emma Hart listed as petitioner. He closed his office door and read every page. Emma was not asking for his savings. She was not asking for the car. She was not asking for furniture. She was not asking for spousal support. The filing stated that she sought only dissolution of the marriage and division of jointly owned property, according to law. Daniel read that section again. It bothered him. He had expected anger. He had prepared arguments. He had even spent Sunday night rehearsing explanations in his head. Vanessa means nothing. It was a mistake. You were distant too. I felt trapped. We stopped being happy. He had a sentence ready for every accusation. But Emma had not accused him in the papers. She had simply ended the marriage. At lunchtime, he called her from a number she had not blocked. She answered after 4 rings. Hello. For a moment, Daniel could not speak. Her voice was calm. That made him angry. Where are you? And safe. What does that mean? It means I'm safe. Emma, we need to talk. No, Daniel, you need to talk. I already listened for years. He stood and closed the blinds of his office. I can explain. The apartment, too. Silence. The hotel. He pressed his fingers against his forehead. Emma, the necklace you bought her 2 days after telling me we couldn't afford a dentist appointment. Daniel swallowed. How do you know all this? That's the question you care about. No, Daniel, I'm not interested in hearing you turn discovery into the crime. You cheated, you lied, I found out that's the sequence. His irritation collapsed into panic. Please come home. It isn't my home anymore. Yes, it is. No, it's a place where I spent too long believing a man who had stopped respecting me. He lowered his voice. I love you. Emma was quiet. Then she said, I believe that you love what I did for you. That's not fair. No, it isn't. He could hear traffic in the background. Are you with someone? The hypocrisy of the question was so complete that Emma almost laughed. No. Then where are you? Goodbye, Daniel. Emma, wait. She ended the call. Daniel stood alone in his office, holding the phone against his ear long after the line went dead. That evening, he went to Vanessa's apartment. Technically, it was his apartment. He paid for it. Vanessa opened the door wearing a black dress. You missed Friday. Gemma left. Vanessa's expression changed. For half a second, Daniel saw surprise. Then something that looked almost like satisfaction. As she knows. And yes. Vanessa stepped aside. Well, maybe this is what needed to happen. Daniel stared at her. What? You said you were unhappy. I said things were complicated. You said you wanted a different life. I didn't say I wanted my wife to disappear. Vanessa crossed her arms. She didn't disappear, Daniel. She filed for divorce. He walked past her and sat on the sofa. On the coffee table was an open travel magazine featuring luxury resorts in Italy. Vanessa poured him a drink. This could be a new beginning. He looked at the glass but did not touch it. With you. She smiled faintly. I would hope so. For months, that answer would have thrilled him. Now he felt exhausted. He looked around the apartment. The white sofa Emma would never have chosen because it was impossible to keep clean. The abstract painting Vanessa had insisted made the place look expensive. The imported candles. The wine rack. The gold lamp. Daniel had spent thousands creating this room as a fantasy of the man he wanted to become. Without the secrecy, it suddenly looked fake. Vanessa sat beside him. Are you worried about the money? What money? The divorce. She doesn't know about the account. Vanessa looked at him. Are you sure? Daniel thought about Emma's letter. I know about the money you told me you didn't have. His stomach tightened. She knows. How much can she take? I don't know. Vanessa leaned back. You need a lawyer. The tenderness in her voice had vanished. Now she sounded practical. Daniel noticed. You're worried. Of course I'm worried. You built a life with her. You said she had nothing. She does have nothing. Vanessa frowned. Then why are you acting like she won? That question stayed with him. The next day, Daniel hired a divorce attorney named Paul Mercer. Paul was in his late 50s, with gray hair and the impatient expression of a man who had spent decades listening to people underestimate the consequences of their own choices. Your wife isn't demanding much, Paul said after reviewing the filing. That's good, right? Usually. What does usually mean? It means people who are furious fight over lamps. People who are finished leave the lamps. Daniel shifted in his chair. She knows I had another account. Was it marital income? And yes. Then disclose it. What if I don't? Paul looked at him over his glasses. Then you'll pay me a great deal of money to watch a judge become irritated with you. Daniel looked away. Paul tapped the filing. She is represented by Bennett, Shaw, and Rowe. And so? Paul paused. You don't know them. No. They're not exactly a neighborhood divorce office. Daniel shrugged. What does that mean? It means their private client division handles people who usually own the neighborhood. Daniel laughed. Emma works in a bookstore. Paul did not laugh. Maybe the firm is doing someone a favor. Daniel nodded quickly. That explanation felt safer. What should I do? Tell the truth, disclose everything. Stop contacting your wife if she asks you to stop. And if there's another woman, do not make your life more complicated by moving money around for her. Daniel stiffened. I didn't say there was another woman. Paul stared at him. You didn't have to. The legal process moved quietly for the next month. Emma stayed away. Daniel moved between the apartment he had shared with her and the secret apartment with Vanessa, never comfortable in either. At first, Vanessa tried to make the transition feel romantic. She cleared a drawer for his clothes. She bought 2 matching coffee cups. She posted a photograph of their hands at dinner without showing his face. But Daniel became irritable. He checked Emma's social media, even though she rarely posted. He drove past the bookstore and learned she no longer worked there. He called 2 mutual friends, both said they had not spoken to her. He asked his mother whether Emma had called. No, his mother said, and after what you did, I don't blame her. Daniel was stunned. His mother, Linda, had criticized Emma for years. Emma was too quiet. Emma's clothes were too plain. Emma should have found a better paying job. Emma did not push Daniel enough. Whenever Daniel complained, Linda usually took his side. Now her disappointment was cold. You knew, he asked. About the affair, not until she left. She told you. No, you did, when you called me drunk at 1 a.m. and asked whether cheating means you never loved your wife. Daniel rubbed his face. I don't remember that. I do. He waited for sympathy. None came. Linda said, your father cheated on me. Daniel froze. His father had died when he was 22. He remembered a difficult marriage, but he had never known why. Dad. For 2 years. You never told me. There was no reason to make you hate him. Did you forgive him? I stayed, that isn't the same thing. Daniel sat down. Linda continued, your father regretted it, truly, but regret did not put trust back where it had been. We had good years afterward, but something was always missing. Daniel closed his eyes. Emma won't even talk to me. Maybe because she understands that before you regret losing her, you have to regret hurting her. I do. Do you? Yes. Or do you regret being caught? He did not answer. Linda sighed. You always wanted more, Danny. Bigger job, better car, better neighborhood. There is nothing wrong with wanting to succeed. But somewhere along the way, you started treating people like they were furniture in a room you planned to upgrade. That's not true. Then, why did your wife become embarrassing to you the moment your coworkers started earning more money? Daniel stood. I didn't say she was embarrassing. You didn't have to. That was the second time in 2 days someone had said those words to him. He left angry, but anger could not silence the question. 2 weeks later, Daniel attended the first settlement conference. Emma arrived before him. He almost walked past her. Not because she looked dramatically different. She did not. Her hair was tied back, her makeup was light, she wore a navy dress and a simple coat. But she looked rested. For years, Daniel had seen small lines of worry around her eyes. They were softer now. She was talking to Harold Bennett, an elegant man in his 70s, and a younger attorney named Rachel Shaw. Harold touched Emma's shoulder in a familiar, almost paternal way. Daniel felt an unreasonable burst of jealousy. When Emma saw him, her smile disappeared, but she did not look afraid. Hello, Daniel. He had imagined this moment 100 times. He had planned to look composed. Instead, he said, You look good. Thank you. I've been trying to reach you. I know. We should talk before this. No. 5 minutes. Daniel. Her tone stopped him. Rachel opened the conference room door. Mrs. Hart. Emma walked inside. Daniel followed with Paul. The meeting began with assets, bank accounts, the car, retirement contributions, furniture, the hidden account, Daniel's apartment lease. Paul had forced Daniel to disclose everything. Rachel reviewed the numbers calmly. Then she said, Mrs. Hart waives any claim to Mr. Hart's separately maintained account beyond the amount necessary to equalize the marital division already proposed. Daniel looked at Emma. You don't want it. Emma did not answer him directly. Rachel continued. Mrs. Hart also agrees to release her interest in the vehicle and household goods currently in Mr. Hart's possession. Paul leaned toward Daniel. This is favorable. Daniel whispered, Why? Paul whispered back, Take yes for an answer. But Daniel could not. What about her accounts? The room became still. Rachel looked at Harold. Harold looked at Emma. Emma nodded once. Rachel turned a page. Mrs. Hart has separate inherited assets that are not subject to division under the applicable agreement and estate structure. Daniel blinked. Inherited. Paul placed a hand on Daniel's arm. Let counsel finish. Daniel stared at Emma. From who? Emma looked back at him. My grandmother. Your grandmother had that little house outside Bellhaven. She had several houses. Harold spoke for the first time. Mr. Hart, the purpose of today's meeting is not to inventory Mrs. Hart's separate estate, except where legally required. Daniel's pulse began to race. What separate estate? Paul leaned close. Daniel stopped. But Daniel barely heard him. Emma's grandmother. He remembered the old woman's practical shoes, her faded station wagon, her house with the small kitchen and ancient curtains. He remembered once joking after a visit that a leaner lived like she was waiting for the depression to come back. Emma had not laughed. How much did she leave you? Rachel's expression hardened. That is not relevant. It is to me. Emma finally spoke. No, Daniel, it isn't. We're married. We're divorcing. You had money this whole time. Emma's eyes changed. Not with guilt. With sadness. And yes. Daniel pushed his chair back. How much? Paul said, my client needs a moment. No, I don't. Yes, you do. Daniel ignored him. How much, Emma? She looked at Harold. Harold gave the smallest nod. Emma folded her hands on the table. When my grandmother died, the estate and controlling business interests transferred to trusts in my name. That's not a number. The value changes. Emma. At the time, approximately 187 million. Daniel stopped moving. The air seemed to leave the room. He heard the hum of the ventilation system. A car horn outside. Someone walking past the conference room. Then he laughed. It came out strangely. 187 what? A million. Vanessa's diamond necklace had cost $11,000. Daniel thought of it for no reason. He thought of every dinner bill he had hidden. Every lie about overtime. Every moment he had felt superior because Emma wore shoes from a discount store. He looked at her plain handbag on the chair beside her. A million. And yes, you're rich. Emma's face remained still. I have wealth. You're rich. If that word helps you understand it. Daniel stood. You lied to me. Paul closed his eyes. Emma stared at Daniel, as though he had just proven something she had hoped was untrue. I did hide the inheritance, she said. For 3 years. And yes, you let me think we were struggling. We weren't struggling after the inheritance. I complained about bills. And most of them were quietly paid. My mother's surgery. I paid the balance. Daniel's mouth opened. My course. And yes, the refrigerator. And yes, the rent increase. The building was purchased by a company in my trust. There was no rent increase. Daniel gripped the back of his chair. You bought our building. Technically, the trust did. Paul said quietly, sit down. Daniel did not. He remembered complaining to Emma that their landlord was greedy. He remembered promising her that one day he would buy her a house. He remembered Vanessa asking him whether he was tired of supporting a bookstore wife. And he had said yes. A heat of shame moved up his neck. Why didn't you tell me? Emma's voice softened. At first because I was overwhelmed, then because I wanted our marriage to stay ours. You tested me. No. Yes, you did. You wanted to see whether I'd stay poor with you. Emma took a slow breath. I never asked you to stay poor. We had enough. We took vacations. We paid our bills. We helped your mother. You got the training you wanted. You were building your career. I kept living simply because I liked our life. You watched me worry about money. And I offered solutions. You should have told me. Maybe I should have. The answer surprised him. Emma continued, I've asked myself that many times. Keeping something that large from my husband was wrong. I was afraid wealth would change us, so I made a decision alone that should have involved both of us. Daniel stared at her. She was admitting fault. For one hopeful second, he saw an opening. So we can fix this. No. The word landed harder because she said it gently. Why not? Because my secret did not make you cheat. Daniel said nothing. Emma looked at him with tears gathering but not falling. If I had told you I was worth $187 million, would you have rented an apartment for Vanessa? No. Would you have told her I was an embarrassment? His face changed. He had not known Emma had seen that message. Would you have laughed about my job? No. Would you have complained that I had no ambition? No. Emma nodded. That is exactly why I can't stay married to you. Daniel's throat tightened. You're punishing me because I didn't know you were rich. No, I'm leaving because I learned the kind of loyalty I received when you thought I was poor. No one in the room moved. Daniel sank back into his chair. For the first time since Emma left, he understood that the inheritance was not his rescue. It was evidence. Not evidence that Emma had deceived him. Evidence that his love had behaved differently depending on what he believed she was worth. And there was no argument he could make that would erase it. The meeting ended 40 minutes later. Daniel remembered almost none of it. He signed where Paul pointed. He nodded when asked direct questions. He watched Emma leave the conference room with Harold and Rachel. At the elevator, she turned back once. Not toward Daniel. Toward the receptionist who had called her name. Daniel still felt as though she had looked through him. Outside, he sat in his car and did not start the engine. $187 million. The number circled in his mind like a siren. He imagined houses, private planes, hotels, investments. He imagined the life he could have had. Then shame followed immediately behind the thought. The life he could have had. Not the wife he had lost. Even now, after everything, his first instinct had been to calculate. He hit the steering wheel with the heel of his hand. Once, twice. Then he stopped because a man crossing the parking lot was staring at him. Daniel drove to Vanessa's apartment. She was at the kitchen island with her laptop open. You're early. Daniel said nothing. Vanessa looked up. What happened? He dropped his keys on the counter. Emma is rich. Vanessa smiled uncertainly. What do you mean? Rich? How rich? He laughed without humor. $187 million when she inherited it, maybe more now. Vanessa's face went blank. Daniel watched the number change her. It happened in seconds. Her posture straightened. Her eyes sharpened. What? Her grandmother. The old woman with the little house. Apparently, the old woman with the little house owned half the world. Vanessa closed her laptop. And Emma never told you. No. That's insane. Daniel waited. He did not know what he wanted her to say. Maybe that Emma was wrong. Maybe that money did not matter. Maybe that they had each other. Instead, Vanessa asked, "Are you entitled to any of it?" Daniel stared at her. What? You were married when she inherited it. It's separate. Are you sure? Yes. Did your lawyer say that? Yes. Vanessa stood and began pacing. There must be something. Appreciation, distributions, property purchased during the marriage. You should get another lawyer. Daniel watched her. Why? She stopped. Because she lied to you for 3 years. That doesn't make the money mine. No, but why do you care? Vanessa's expression hardened. Because you were cheated too. Daniel almost laughed. Don't. Don't what? Make us equal. I didn't say we were equal. You're acting like Emma hiding an inheritance is the same as me sleeping with you. Vanessa folded her arms. So now you're defending her. I'm saying what happened. What happened is your wife let you live like a poor man while she had almost $200 million. We weren't poor. You complained about money constantly. I complained because I wanted things. And she could have given them to you. Daniel looked at Vanessa. A strange clarity came over him. She did give me things. Vanessa frowned. What? My education, my mother's surgery, bills, the apartment building. The apartment building. She owns it. Vanessa stared. Daniel laughed once. She owns the building where I was pretending to be the provider. For the first time, he saw the entire absurd shape of his life. He had treated Emma's thrift as failure. He had admired Vanessa because she admired expensive things. He had built a secret apartment to feel wealthy, while his wife quietly controlled a fortune. The irony would have been funny if it did not make him sick. Vanessa walked to the window. So what now? The divorce continues. And us. Daniel looked at her. There it was. The question that had once seemed romantic. Now it felt like an invoice. I don't know. Vanessa turned sharply. You don't know. I just found out my wife. Your soon-to-be ex-wife. Fine, my soon-to-be ex-wife has had a life I knew nothing about. And that changes how you feel about me. No. The word came too quickly. Vanessa noticed. It does. Daniel rubbed his face. I need time. Of course you do. She grabbed her handbag. Where are you going? Somewhere I'm not being compared to a woman you cheated on. You asked whether I could get her money within 30 seconds. Vanessa stopped at the door. And you started mourning her within 10. She left. Daniel stood alone in the apartment. For the first time, he understood that he and Vanessa had never truly known each other. They had known the versions they performed. He was the ambitious married man who deserved more. She was the exciting woman who represented more. Take away secrecy, resentment, and fantasy, and there was surprisingly little left. Over the next 2 months, the divorce moved toward completion. Emma did not fight. Daniel did not fight either. He could have made the process difficult. For a brief period, he considered challenging the classification of certain assets. Paul explained there was little basis for it. More importantly, Paul asked a question Daniel could not answer. Do you want a fair settlement, or do you want a reason to stay connected to her? Daniel stared at the legal pad on Paul's desk. I don't know. Yes, you do. Daniel left the office and told Paul to accept Emma's proposed terms. Vanessa moved out of the secret apartment 3 weeks later. She did not leave quietly. You wasted my time, she told him. Daniel stood in the doorway as she packed shoes into a suitcase. I never promised you marriage. You said you loved me. I thought I did. She laughed. No, you thought I was an upgrade. The word hit him because it was true. Vanessa zipped the suitcase. And I thought you were one too. For a moment, they simply looked at each other. There was no villainous speech. No dramatic slap. Only the ugly honesty of two people realizing they had built a relationship around dissatisfaction. Vanessa carried her bag to the door. Before leaving, she said, if Emma had been poor, would you be this broken? Daniel did not answer. Vanessa nodded. That's what I thought. The door closed. Daniel stood there long enough for the hallway lights to switch off automatically. He moved back into the old apartment. Technically, he was now renting from a company controlled by Emma's trust. That fact made every room feel haunted. He noticed things he had ignored before. The scratch on the table from the night they assembled it together. A small burn mark near the stove from Emma's first attempt at making caramel. A pencil line inside the hallway closet where they once measured the height of their friend's little boy. Emma had left behind objects with memories attached to them because she did not need the objects to keep the memories. Daniel had kept everything and lost the person. At work, his performance dropped. He missed follow-up calls. He arrived late to meetings. He snapped at a junior salesman who asked a routine question. His director, Martin, called him in. "What's going on?" "Divorce." Martin leaned back. "I'm sorry. It's my fault." Martin waited. Daniel almost appreciated that he did not pretend otherwise. "I need a week. Take 3 days, then come back ready to work." Daniel nodded. During those 3 days, he did something he had not done in years. Nothing. No secret dates. No overtime. No networking dinners. No shopping. He sat in the apartment and remembered. He remembered meeting Emma at 26 when his car battery died outside a bookstore. She had walked out carrying a box of donated books and found him cursing under the hood. "Do you need cables?" she asked. He looked at her skeptically. "You have jumper cables. I have a grandmother." He laughed. "What does that mean?" "It means I was not allowed to get a driver's license until I could change a tire, check oil, and jump a battery." She had helped him start the car. He asked her for coffee. She said yes. Their first date lasted 4 hours and cost less than $20. Daniel remembered the way Emma listened when he talked about wanting to build a better life than the one he grew up with. She never laughed at his ambition. She only asked, "What does better mean?" He had said, "Not worrying about money." She had smiled. "That sounds like peace, I like that." Somewhere along the way, Daniel had replaced peace with status. He remembered proposing in a public park because he could not afford a restaurant. Emma cried before he even opened the box. He remembered apologizing because the ring was small. She had held his face and said, "I'm marrying you, not the ring." Years later, he bought Vanessa a necklace larger than Emma's engagement stone and felt proud of himself. Daniel went to the bathroom and vomited. On the final day of the divorce hearing, Emma wore gray. Daniel wore the suit she had helped him choose for his promotion interview. He realized that only when he caught sight of himself in the courthouse restroom mirror. He almost changed. There was no time. The judge reviewed the agreement, asked several questions, and declared the marriage dissolved. 7 years reduced to signatures and a date stamped by a clerk. Outside the courtroom, Daniel followed Emma into the corridor. "Is Emma?" She stopped. Harold and Rachel continued ahead to give them privacy. Daniel approached slowly. "It's done." "And yes." "I'm sorry." Emma's eyes lowered for a moment. "I know." "No, I mean I'm sorry for all of it, not just Vanessa." She looked at him again. "I know that too. I was cruel to you." Her face tightened. "I made you feel small because I felt small." Emma did not rescue him from the statement. He continued. "I made fun of your work. I lied about money. I acted like I was carrying us when you were carrying more than I knew." A courthouse door opened behind them. People passed. Daniel lowered his voice. "I don't want your money." Emma's expression changed slightly. He realized how ridiculous the sentence sounded after the divorce was already final. "I mean, I know what everyone probably thinks, that I regret this because I found out." "Do you?" And yes. The answer came out before he could protect himself. Emma's eyes filled with disappointment. Daniel quickly continued. "But not only because of the money. Daniel, you don't need to convince me anymore. I need you to understand." "No, you need you to understand." He stopped. Emma took a breath. "If I had never inherited anything, what would you be feeling today?" Daniel wanted to say the right thing. He could not. Emma watched him struggle. "That's why this has to be over." He looked down. "I loved you." "I know. I still do. I believe part of you does." "Then how can you walk away?" Tears finally appeared in Emma's eyes. Because love is not the only thing a marriage needs. He stared at her. She said it needs safety, respect, truth, the confidence that the person beside you does not become less loyal when someone shinier walks into the room. Daniel's jaw trembled. I can change. I hope you do. For us. For you. That answer broke something inside him. Emma wiped one tear from her cheek. I don't want you destroyed, Daniel. I don't want revenge. I don't want you poor. I don't want you lonely. I just don't want to be married to you anymore. He nodded because there was nothing else he could do. Emma turned away. Then Daniel said, was any of it real? She looked back. All of it was real to me. And she walked toward the elevator. Daniel did not follow. 6 months passed. Emma moved into a modest house on the edge of Belhaven. It was worth more than the apartment, but far less than she could afford. There were 3 bedrooms, a wide kitchen, and a garden that had been neglected for years. Harold thought the choice was strange. You could live anywhere. I know. New York, London, Florence. I know. You could at least buy a house where the roof doesn't need work. Emma smiled. I like this one. The truth was that she did not want luxury. Not yet. Luxury felt too connected to the revelation that had ended her marriage. She wanted quiet. She wanted a place she had chosen without Daniel's opinion. She wanted to learn who she was when she was not protecting an inheritance and not protecting a husband. She left the bookstore, but not because she was ashamed of it. She created a literacy foundation in her grandmother's name and partnered with schools, libraries, and shelters. She spent mornings reviewing grants and afternoons visiting programs. She still wore ordinary clothes. She still used the same coffee mug. But she no longer hid when someone asked what she did. My family owns several businesses, she would say. I oversee the foundation and part of the holding company. The first few times, the words felt foreign. Then they became simply true. News of Emma's inheritance eventually spread. A business magazine published a short profile after Whitmore Holdings acquired a regional hotel group. Emma's photograph appeared beside the headline. Private heiress steps into public role after years away. Daniel saw the article at work. A coworker named Kyle walked into his office holding his phone. Isn't this your ex-wife? Daniel looked. Emma was standing outside a renovated public library with several children and city officials. She looked happy. Not glamorous. Not transformed. Happy. Yeah, Daniel said. Kyle whistled. Man, you divorced a millionaire. Daniel looked at him. She divorced me. So? Kyle's smile disappeared. Daniel returned to his computer. By lunch, everyone knew. No one said much directly, but Daniel heard the silence when he entered the break room. He imagined the story spreading. Daniel Hart cheated on a woman worth nearly $200 million. It sounded like a joke designed to punish greed. But the joke missed the worst part. If Emma had truly been poor, Daniel's betrayal would not have been smaller. He had begun to understand that. Slowly. Painfully. The money made his mistake dramatic. The disrespect made it tragic. Daniel began therapy because his mother told him to. At first, he hated it. The therapist, Dr. Avery, did not seem impressed by explanations. Daniel described his childhood. His father had worked in a factory. His mother cleaned offices at night. There had been months when overdue notices sat unopened on the kitchen table because nobody wanted to see what they owed. He remembered classmates laughing at his second-hand shoes. He remembered promising himself that one day no one would look down on him. That promise sounds important, Dr. Avery said. It was. What happened when you started earning more? I felt better. For how long? Daniel thought, not long. And when someone else had more, I felt behind. So the finish line moved. And yes, what did your wife represent to you during that time? Daniel wanted to say love. Instead, he said, where I came from. Dr. Avery waited. Daniel's eyes burned. I think I started blaming her for reminding me. That sentence hurt more than any accusation Emma had made. He had not merely become bored with his wife. He had resented her familiarity with the version of himself he was trying to escape. Emma knew him before the title, before the suits, before he learned which wine to order around executives. She knew he snored when exhausted and cried at his father's funeral, and once worked 3 delivery jobs in a single month. Vanessa knew the polished version. Daniel had mistaken being admired for being understood. Therapy did not turn him into a different man overnight. He still envied. He still checked Emma's name online. He still sometimes imagined what his life might have looked like if she had revealed the inheritance before he cheated. A mansion, travel, no mortgage, a seat on boards, maybe his own company. Whenever those fantasies appeared, he forced himself to ask a harder question. Would I miss Emma if she had inherited nothing? At first, his answer was complicated by shame. Then memories began arriving that had no money in them. Emma asleep with a book open on her chest. Emma dancing badly while washing dishes. Emma calling his mother every Sunday. Emma leaving a thermos by the door on cold mornings. Emma sitting beside him in an emergency room after his father's brother had a stroke. Emma laughing so hard at a terrible movie that she spilled popcorn on the floor. He missed those things. That realization did not save the marriage. It arrived too late, but it changed the shape of his regret. A year after the divorce, Daniel saw Emma in person for the first time since court. His mother was receiving an award from a local community center where she had volunteered for years. Daniel arrived early and was surprised to see Emma near the stage. She was speaking to the center director. When she noticed Daniel, they both froze for a second. Then Emma smiled politely. Hi. Hi. Linda appeared between them before either could say more. She hugged Emma. A real hug. Daniel watched his mother hold his ex-wife with the affection of someone greeting family. I didn't know you were coming, Linda said. The foundation helped fund the new reading room. Linda turned to Daniel. Did you know? No. Emma looked uncomfortable. It wasn't supposed to be a surprise. Daniel smiled faintly. It's okay. The ceremony began. Emma sat 2 rows ahead. Daniel found himself watching the back of her head more than the stage. He hated himself for it. Afterward, people gathered around tables with coffee and cake. Daniel stayed away until Emma was alone. Then he approached. The reading room looks good. Thank you. My mother says the center almost closed last year. It had a funding gap. And you covered it. The foundation helped. Daniel nodded. You always do that. Do what? Say helped when you did more than help. Emma studied him. You sound different. I'm trying to be. She did not ask for details. That was fair. Daniel looked toward his mother across the room. As she misses you. I miss her too. I'm glad you still talk. Emma nodded. A man approached carrying 2 cups of coffee. He was tall, maybe 40, with a relaxed face and rolled-up shirt sleeves. Tea, not coffee, he said to Emma. I remembered. Emma smiled. Thank you. The man glanced at Daniel. Emma made the introduction. Daniel, this is Thomas Reed, Thomas Daniel. Thomas did not flinch at the name. He held out his hand. Nice to meet you. Daniel shook it. You too. Emma did not explain who Thomas was. She did not need to. There was an ease between them Daniel recognized instantly. Not necessarily love. Not yet. But possibility. Daniel's stomach tightened. He wanted to leave. Instead, he asked Thomas, "Are you with the foundation?" Architect, Thomas said. "We redesigned the reading room." He donated his time, Emma added. Thomas shrugged. So did half the crew. Daniel almost smiled. Emma had found another person who minimized what he gave. For a second, the universe seemed unnecessarily poetic. Linda called Daniel from across the room. He excused himself. As he walked away, he heard Emma laugh at something Thomas said. The sound followed him home. That night, Daniel did not drink. He did not look Thomas up online. He almost did. Instead, he opened a box from the closet containing photographs Emma had left behind. Most were duplicates. One showed Daniel and Emma on their first vacation, standing beside a lake in cheap raincoats. Daniel had hated that vacation at the time because it rained 4 of the 5 days. In the photograph, they were both laughing. He sat on the floor for a long time. Then he put the photograph back. 2 years after the divorce, Daniel left his job. Not because he was fired. Because he finally admitted he hated the person he became there. He accepted a lower-paying position at a smaller company where he trained new salespeople and handled long-term clients. His old self would have called the move backward. The new job gave him evenings. It gave him weekends. It gave him enough. He moved out of Emma's Trustone building and into a smaller apartment. When he mailed the final key to the property manager, he included a note. Please thank the owner for taking good care of the building. He did not sign Emma's name. He no longer wanted every decent act to become a doorway back into her life. Vanessa contacted him once. They had not spoken in almost 2 years. Her message was brief. I heard you left Northline, hope you're doing well. Daniel stared at it. Then he replied, I'm doing better, I hope you are too. She answered with a thumbs up. That was all. He felt no longing. Only recognition. They had both been people looking for mirrors that made them feel more important. Maybe she had changed. Maybe she had not. It was no longer his story to manage. Emma's life moved differently. Whitmore Holdings expanded, but she refused several offers to become the public face of the company. She attended board meetings, learned the business, and challenged executives who treated workers as numbers. She made mistakes. A lot of them. She once approved an expensive community project that failed because she had listened to donors instead of residents. She apologized publicly and rebuilt the program with local leadership. Harold told her Alina would have been proud. Emma cried in the back seat of the car after he said it. Thomas became part of her life gradually. He never asked how much money she had. At least not in the way Daniel had feared people would. When Emma told him the full scale of her inheritance after 6 months of dating, Thomas sat silently for nearly a minute. Then he said, That explains why your lawyer looked at me like he was trying to estimate my credit score. Emma laughed so loudly she frightened the dog. Thomas did not pretend the money was irrelevant. That kind of wealth matters, he told her. It changes choices, it changes risk, it changes what people might want from you. Emma appreciated that more than if he had said he did not care. But, he added, I liked you yesterday. They did not rush. Emma refused to repeat the pattern of making fear-based decisions in secret. When they disagreed, she spoke. When she was scared, she tried to say so. When Thomas admitted that being around her world sometimes made him feel out of place, she did not dismiss him. They learned each other without tests. 3 years after the divorce, Linda called Daniel on a Sunday afternoon. Are you sitting down? And yes. Emma is engaged. Daniel closed his eyes. He had known it might happen. Still, the words reached a part of him logic could not protect. Did Thomas? And yes. He swallowed. That's good. Linda was quiet. You don't have to pretend with me. I'm not. Danny. He looked around his apartment. On the table was a bowl of oranges. On the sofa was a jacket he needed to hang up. Outside, rain touched the windows. An ordinary room. An ordinary life. Once he would have despised it. Now it felt peaceful. He said, it hurts, but it's good. Linda exhaled. I'm sorry. Don't be. Emma invited me. Daniel stared at the floor. To the wedding. Yes, she said I'm family to her. A sharp ache went through him. You should go. Are you sure? And yes. What if it hurts you? It will. Linda waited. Daniel continued, but she lost a husband. She shouldn't have to lose a mother, too. Linda began to cry. Your father never learned how to say things like that. Daniel's throat tightened. I wish I had learned sooner. So do I. The wedding was held in Emma's garden. Daniel knew because Linda showed him one photograph afterward, then quickly apologized. No, Daniel said, it's okay. Emma stood beneath an arch covered with white flowers. Thomas held both her hands. She wore a simple dress. No crown. No enormous diamonds. No palace. The woman with more money than Daniel could fully imagine had chosen a ceremony that looked like the life she had wanted all along. Warm. Small. Real. Daniel handed the phone back. She looks happy. She is. Good. Linda touched his arm. You're allowed to be sad. I know. And he was. For several days. But sadness did not destroy him. He went to work. He went to therapy. He cooked dinner. He called his mother. He lived. 5 years after Daniel first saw Emma's wedding ring on the kitchen counter, he received a letter. It came to his office in a plain envelope. The return address belonged to the Alina Whitmore Literacy Foundation. For one impossible second, he thought Emma had written to him. Then he opened it. Dear Mr. Hart, thank you for your application to volunteer with the Career Restart Mentorship Program. We are pleased to welcome you to the fall cohort as a volunteer mentor. Daniel smiled. Months earlier, he had applied after seeing that the foundation helped adults returning to work after layoffs, divorce, caregiving, or financial hardship. He had hesitated because Emma's name was connected to it. Then he realized avoiding good work, because of his shame, was just another way of making everything about himself. So he applied. His first mentee was a 46-year-old father named Samuel who had lost his restaurant during a flood. Samuel arrived at their meeting wearing an old suit and apologizing for his resume. I know it's not impressive, he said. Daniel looked at him. Years earlier, he might have evaluated the suit, the job titles, the gaps. Now he saw a tired man trying to begin again. Tell me what you're good at, Daniel said. Samuel blinked. People. Start there. They worked together for 3 months. Samuel got a customer service management job just before Christmas. He called Daniel from the parking lot afterward. They hired me. Daniel smiled. I knew they would. You didn't. No, Daniel admitted, but I hoped. Samuel laughed. Then his voice broke. Thank you. Daniel looked out the office window. You did the work. After the call, Daniel sat quietly. For the first time, regret felt useful. Not because it had disappeared. Because it had stopped being only pain. It had become instruction. Several weeks later, Daniel attended a volunteer reception at the foundation's headquarters. He knew Emma might be there. He considered skipping it. He went anyway. The building had once been an abandoned department store. Now the lower floors held classrooms, offices, a library, and a childcare center. Daniel walked past a wall displaying photographs of community programs. One picture showed Alina Whitmore in her younger years. Daniel stopped. He had almost forgotten her face. Under the photograph was a quote. Wealth is not what you keep. It is what remains useful after you are gone. Daniel stared at the words. Grandma loved that sentence. He turned. Emma stood behind him. She was wearing a dark green dress and holding a folder. For a moment, both of them smiled from pure surprise. Hi, Daniel said. Hi. He nodded toward the photograph. She was right about me. Emma's smile faded. She was worried about you. I know. She was also wrong about some things. Daniel looked at her. She thought people rarely changed. Do you think they do? I think they can. They stood in silence. Then Emma said, I heard about Samuel. Daniel laughed softly. Of course you did. He wrote a letter to the program director. Apparently you're a miracle worker. I helped with a resume. He said you called him the morning of every interview. Daniel shrugged. Emma studied him. You're good at this. I spent enough years trying to convince people to buy things. It turns out I like convincing them not to give up. Emma smiled. Thomas appeared across the room, speaking with another volunteer. Daniel noticed a wedding ring on Emma's hand. There was a sting. Smaller now. Cleaner. Emma followed his glance but did not hide her hand. Are you happy? Daniel asked. She considered the question. Yes. He nodded. I'm glad. And you? Daniel thought about his smaller apartment. His mother. His work. Therapy appointments, now months apart instead of weekly. Samuel's phone call. The life he once would have considered unimpressive. I'm getting there. Emma smiled. That sounds like you. What does? Getting there. Daniel laughed. You always said I was impatient. You were. I still am. Some things survive divorce. They both laughed. For one brief moment, they sounded like the people they had been before everything broke. Then Daniel's expression became serious. Emma, can I ask you something? Yes. Did you ever wish you had told me? She looked toward her grandmother's photograph. For a long time. Daniel waited. I blamed myself, she said. I thought maybe if I had told you, you wouldn't have felt so desperate to prove yourself. His chest tightened. Emma continued, but that became another way of imagining I could control your choices. You couldn't. No. I might not have cheated if I knew. Emma looked at him. He forced himself to continue. And that's the part I hate admitting. She said nothing. If I had known you were rich, I probably would have behaved better. I would have felt secure. I would have been proud to introduce you. I would have convinced myself I was a loyal husband. Emma's eyes softened. But I would have been loyal to the wrong thing. Daniel looked at the quote on the wall. I needed you to be worth a fortune before I understood you were already worth protecting. Emma's eyes filled with tears. Daniel's did too. I'm sorry, he said. I know. I'm not saying it because I want anything. I know that too. He smiled through the tears. Finally, Emma laughed softly. Finally, Thomas approached. There you are, he said to Emma, then recognized Daniel. Hey. Hi, Thomas. Thomas shook his hand. I heard you're volunteering. Trying to. Emma says the mentorship team likes you. Daniel glanced at her. Emma shrugged. They do. For an instant, the old jealousy attempted to rise. Daniel let it pass. Thomas belonged beside Emma now. That truth did not make Daniel worthless. It simply meant consequences had become permanent. Someone called Emma's name from the stage. She looked over. I have to go. Of course. She hesitated. Then she hugged Daniel. It was brief. Kind. Nothing more. When she stepped away, Daniel did not hold on. Take care of yourself, she said. You too. Emma and Thomas walked toward the stage together. Daniel remained by Aliner's photograph. The room filled with applause as Emma began speaking about the foundation's next year of work. Daniel did not listen to every word. He was thinking about a Friday night 5 years earlier. A ring on a kitchen counter. A folded letter. 2 sandwiches growing cold in a paper bag. He had once believed that was the night he lost a fortune. It took him years to understand that the fortune had never been the point. Emma's millions could have bought houses, cars, companies, vacations, and 1,000 beautiful things. But they could not buy back trust after betrayal. They could not make a lie become truth. They could not turn disrespect into love. And they could not return a marriage to the moment before one person decided the other had become ordinary. Daniel had spent most of his life afraid of being poor. In the end, his poorest moment had nothing to do with money. It was the moment he had everything that mattered and failed to recognize its value. Emma had pretended to be poor because she feared wealth might change the people around her. Daniel's betrayal proved that she had misunderstood one thing. Wealth did not change him. The hunger for it had already done that. And the deepest regret of his life was not that he had divorced a woman worth nearly $200 million. It was that when he believed she was worth almost nothing, she had still given him everything she had. Her time, her loyalty, her patience, her faith, her love. He had traded all of it for the feeling of being admired by someone who barely knew him. There was no investment that could recover that loss. No promotion that could outrun it. No apology that could erase it. But regret, Daniel learned, did not have to be the place where a life ended. It could become the place where a different life began. He applauded with everyone else. Emma looked over the crowd once and saw him. She smiled. Daniel smiled back. Then she turned toward the future she had built. And this time, Daniel let her go.